My mom and dad. My mom has to have more than once in a while. This is my mom. She wears a great big huge locker like this. She has a and she has one of the I think we're talking about. Rubber gloves, mom. We're talking like the Don washing soap type of gloves, those rubber ones.
And then Boulder today is
And then the phones. Oh, wow.
Oh, really? Yeah. They don't even let you do it there at the fairground.
I don't know, I heard one time that they were.
After they were supposed
Don't get much.
Mark Curley just made the news again for not wearing masks. I guess they didn't do this room. Said it was the worst day in the whole of
Oh, my goodness, oh, okay. That sounds great.
Oh, there's a camera back there.
Better?
1 minute left.
Yeah, level it out a little bit. Yeah, that's good for aiming for like turning source level, not all campus, the Dutch angle. Like first.
Okay, my phone service 6 o'clock. So we will get started. We do the mic on. We haven't been doing the pledge because of the special meeting, so we'll probably let that go again. I have a sort of a brief statement for the Elaine to take over because we want to do this. But anyway, I have a brief statement here. Anyway, about I guess we'll just start. And we won't be taking any comments from the audience or criticism or anything else, so we'll be quiet. Working back from the end of October 5th meeting, Ms. Ganser is partially correct in her abstention vote. City Ordinance 3.011 states that unless a member states that he is not voting, his silence shall be recorded to the affirmative. So Ms. Ganser is correct in stating where she abstained from that vote. Well, on that subject, I've been informed that Ms. Ganser made unfired comments about the mayor at public volleyball games. This is unacceptable behavior according to our leadership code. As far as the complaints about Brent and AJ go, last Wednesday the 7th, in an email to Diane, I proposed going to a committee of the council to investigate this problem. It was to be forwarded to all council members. On June 3rd, 2020, our city attorney, Mr. Schultz, in an email memorandum expressed a similar but more understanding form. Had that's been adopted, I believe a lot of these issues would never have come forward. In his memo, Mr. Schultz suggested a 3-member committee for public works and for an ordinance committee. Also, of these all 3 of these members, the ordinance committee also of 3 members. We have at this time a park board and a planning commission, so we wouldn't have to have committees there. These committees would handle all public input and come to council with the recommendation. For Public Works Committee, I propose having the 2 council members, Mr. Fenwell and Mr. Thiessen, plus 1 resident to be chosen at large. For Ordinance Committee, I would suggest Ms. Christensen and Ms. Johns, as they both have a great deal of experience in city government and business, also with a resident chosen at large. As Mr. Schultz also stated in his memo, the added expense for committee members would be offset by not having to pay him to sit through long council meetings with no timely solutions. One subject which I have not heard played on is the way Mr. Fenwell treated Mr. Olson at the October 5th meeting. A personal appearance at a public council meeting is to be only for questions pertaining to the subject of his presentation, not to express an opinion. Such opinions should be held until the council meeting, after the speaker has finished, and be addressed to the full council as part of the discussion before a vote. Secondly, on October 5th meeting, Mr. Fenwell stated that contrary to her statement in her resignation letter, Ms. Francis resigned because Surrey was in such a mess, and she applied for a similar job in Garrison. The truth is, according to Ms. Francis, that her resignation letter is accurate to the city. The city was paying her $200 a month, and she gets $200 an hour when she's in her office. It just doesn't pencil out. And the Garrison City Attorney called her, Ms. Francis, for her to take over the job in Garrison. She is originally from Garrison, has family there. And she will do that job, but she'll do it on Zoom for like a video link or something, so she can do it from her office. So as far as my having trouble controlling persons on the council, I can only agree. Most of you, or I should say all of you, are old friends and acquaintances, having known you for many years at school activities, city functions, ball games, through my business, and at the church. I find it difficult to be aggressive or rude to bring the council to order or to stop disagreements among residents who all hold strong beliefs as to the best way to do things. Finally, I was visiting with League of Cities on Monday, I believe it was, about this home rule. And they said they had a forum at their virtual convention this year regarding home rule cities. It's a presentation by 3 attorneys from Washington on the do's and don'ts of home rule. I think we should schedule a time when we all can view this video, as it would solve a lot of our issues. Thank you. And I'll turn the meeting over to Elaine. You have the floor.
So again, with me being the newest council member here, I wanted to sit down with council and discuss protocol of how to handle complaints. I don't know what's been done in the past, good or bad. The funny thing is I made this complaint form when I was auditor. The reason I started the complaint form was because if someone came in and had a grass issue against their neighbor, I could go into the ordinance book and find the grass ordinance, and I had the authority to issue a letter to say you need to cut your grass. Same thing with a junk ordinance. I knew of times where people would come in my office and have a complaint against a tree overhanging, is the one I can think of that kind of started this. And there was a fence issue. Well, there was things in there that
if it wasn't in the ordinance book, me as auditor, I did not have any authority to make any kind of decisions or anything like that. And so I wanted a form so that people could actually fill it out and sign it so I could bring it to council. Because I had people all the time that would complain about something and then I would ask them to fill out a form and sign it and they would say no. So if it wasn't a written complaint, then I wasn't able to take that to council. So that's kind of why that form had started in the first place. So I want to find out what you guys have for ideas when there are valid complaints, whether it be from a resident, a council member, an employee. I guess employee-wise, I believe, is there a protocol in place? Anyone?
I believe the city followed chain of command for that.
There is a personnel policy right now.
Okay. And so, how do we as council want to set up a protocol to handle the complaints? Now, our attorney had brought the thing about having a committee, a complaint committee. I don't know, and I want your guys' opinions. I don't know if I like that. I want, the reason I'm sitting here is to help the residents, and so if you have a committee with that, what action can be taken, it's gonna have to come to us anyway. So I don't know how I feel about the committee thing, but I know that we have to get some protocols put into place so that our residents can be heard.
Well, in the past few years though, I bet there hasn't. I don't think there's been, that I can think of 10 written complaints since I've been on the council, period, until just lately after the last meeting. Otherwise, there hasn't been many.
There hasn't been 10 in the 20 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see why you even make a committee to, it sounds like there's gonna be a lot more coming.
If that's the case, that's kind of why we're having this meeting, is to discuss how we're gonna handle them if they are concerning.
Well, I think there's a level of a complaint. There's a difference between someone complaining about a council person or someone complaining about a tree.
Yeah.
And
We are sitting here because of what the motion I made at the last meeting, plain and simple, nothing else.
correct.
Let's move on with complaints, and then we'll discuss it at the end. How about
I agree with Elaine that, the reason that she created this form was for ordinance violations, and most of that can be taken care of in the office. Any police department complaints obviously go right to our chief of police to handle. As far as these, I would say it has to go to full council. So, I mean, that's fairly easy.
It's not fairly easy because I think sometimes you end up with these complaints when you tell our city employees if they're supposed to handle this complaint from somebody, let's say it's a tree or whatever, they do what they think is correct, and they are so hand-tied and afraid to make a decision, because as soon as they do something that's wrong about a complaint, the council has been jumping on them like there's no tomorrow.
I guess as long as they follow the ordinance, I mean, that's all they can do.
or sometimes it can be an easy fix and it don't get done. Because they're scared to do it right or wrong or whatever.
They're afraid. I would be
Either way though.
Am I wrong in saying that any of these complaint forms that we've gone, none of them have been about a tree?
Nope.
Right, because
I'm just saying.
that is
they're
usually
not-
handled in the office.
Right. So I mean, there's obviously other issues than trees and the fences.
don't you think it'd be best if we go right to the ordinances, discuss this stuff, and then at the end would be more appropriate? What you wanna do there, as far as you're gonna do committee, whatever you're gonna do.
I think the question on the table is, how do we handle complaint forms that do not follow any ordinance category?
Correct.
Yeah, really been a big issue, so tell me.
Do we have any suggestions, anybody?
So like lastly, in the code of conduct, the leadership code, how complaints are to be handled. Does anybody have that list? I can bring mine.
I have mine.
There's nothing in the leadership code about what to do with the complaint form. There's nothing in ordinances on what to do with the complaint form. That is kind of why I felt we need to call a meeting for us to discuss it at large.
What does our attorney have to say on the subject?
My understanding of the ordinance is that it's the mayor who has disciplinary authority over employees. Am I wrong about that? Okay, so if it's about a city employee or something happening along those lines, then I'm wondering why all complaint forms aren't just given to the mayor so the mayor can have disciplinary authority.
Well, what if it's against the mayor?
Somebody should really write something about that.
Well,
Because, well,
okay, go ahead,
I was gonna say, I think Councilor Thiessen is right, there's no real enforcement mechanism in the leadership code. It says you're not supposed to be doing this, but there's no or else attached to it. So at the very least, maybe there should be some guidelines. I agree with Councilor Christensen, there needs to be some process for how this is gonna go, because as it stands right now, to me, it looks like every complaint form we get that's about a city employee should be given to the mayor because he's the one with disciplinary authority.
And if it would be against the mayor, would it go to the council president?
I really don't know that. I mean, if it's in the ordinance that if there's a complaint about the mayor, it goes to the council president, that's fine, but I didn't see anything like that. It's just a hole in the ordinance that needs to be filled.
Under the same category, then if there's a complaint about council, then it goes to the mayor as well, correct? If I'm reading that correctly?
Not having it in front of me, I can't verify it 100%, but my instinct would say yes. But again, councilors have certain protections. They're elected officials. They can't really be fired for something like that. I mean, you're looking at a recall or something else, but they're treated differently in the ordinance.
Slapping anybody. I want a clear process for this so we don't end up up there staring at each other and not knowing what the heck we're doing.
Right, and I think there's a consensus that there isn't a specifically defined process. And I think we're here because we want to create that process.
I guess one thing that I would have to say was, I believe it was, right before I got on council, I can't remember, 2.5 years ago, didn't they vote? I think you guys all voted to basically took the power of firing an employee away from the mayor. That ordinance got changed. I believe it did. As far as firing an employee.
I believe it was changed to limit to the city attorney and engineer.
It went, well,
With doing so, you had to provide at the next meeting a reason for doing so.
right, and I believe that you had to have I think it basically give it to the council to vote. It took the power away from the mayor as far as firing an employee. So it's disciplinary, that's different.
I've got it here, it's 4.0201, sub 3. The point subject to the approval of the council, such officers as and employees as provided by the ordinances. So there's appointment power. But I think if there's a firing power, it says appoint, so I'm assuming that also includes discipline.
report on the board.
I guess my big question is, well, I didn't think it was a question until I guess these complaint forms. I guess when we went to, we always wait till the end to do additions or whatever. And then if I'm gonna bring something up, I mean, we fired a public employee 2+ years ago. I don't remember the exact date. Mike, Carl, all of us voted yes on it. It was in an open meeting. I got it right here. Open meetings guideline from the Attorney General is generally a public entity may not close a meeting to discuss salary issues or employee job performance. So it has to be done in an open meeting. So I don't believe I did anything wrong, and I had cause for it. I have a list. It got shut down because, everyone got mad, but I mean, this isn't something that just has never happened before, where we, one council member or whatever dislikes another person's, wants to fire, they don't think they're doing their job and they're acting quick. Or county commissioner just fired an employee not very long ago, a month ago. City Minot does it. This isn't something that's just brand new out of the box.
But our council members don't want to fire employees, doesn't have to come.
It was to be voted on. I made a motion. I didn't say you're fired. I made a motion. Of course it has to be voted on. Everything has to be voted on.
So
Can we circle back towards our initial topic here? We're kind of getting onto the tangent here. Just say, hope we stay on topic. I don't want to get out of control on this. If it pleases the mayor, sorry, don't mean to be set on your toes here.
No, that's fine. It's among you guys to decide.
I guess I'm not sure we're deciding, we're having a committee or not. Let's move on. You're sitting here doing nothing.
We want to address each complaint separately,
I suppose.
or how do you want to handle it? Violet, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't think we need a committee. I don't think that's the proper way to do it. I do think it should come to the council, and I think Elaine's right. We need to have a rule and decide how we're gonna do things. I think we should look at each complaint and address each one individually, but without any rules to address.
My question then, I'm not trying to be rude, but what kind of rules do you want? Every situation gets probably different.
Well, I'm just saying, if somebody
You know what I mean?
files a complaint against whoever, one of us or the mayor or whoever, what, is it just a piece of paper? I mean, I don't know,
As far as punishment, you mean, or what?
well, yeah, I mean, I don't think there should be punishment because two people had a disagreement on a meeting.
Right.
I don't think anybody deserves to, lose their left toe, but at the same time, there has to be consequences when behaviors are inappropriate.
But sometimes the other person may not think his behavior was inappropriate.
That's true,
So, you know what I mean?
I agree, that's true.
I'll tell you right now, I'm 100% behind what I said, and I'll back it to this day.
Well, there are in the ordinances, areas for disciplining council people, through having them removed from council, but that discipline is generally based on activities during the council meeting, not.
There's nothing to remove a council member unless the governor does it. You either gotta be stealing money or something
Well,
like that. You
you
can't
can be
just
removed from two meetings, from a
be
meeting,
removed from a meeting by majority vote.
but they can't be thrown off the start.
Right.
My part in here about the home rule, I did go through a little bit of the seminar, and they talk about layering things in the home rule. You have to have this before you can do that. I really think that's something that we need to go through to see what powers we do have for the. Because once you're in the home rule, are you not separate from the council mayor form of government? You're in the home rule section.
That's what I would agree with.
It seemed like it's a whole different beast.
But isn't that home rule charter just basically, all that was introduced to the city or voted on, whatever, however.
It was adopted. We have it.
But it is, that was to get the sales tax.
Correct, but there's other things that go with it.
But that ordinance does not, there's not any ordinances in there. You don't go by.
No, there's not an ordinance in there. No, I would agree with that.
You have to have, law still go by the North Dakota Century Code.
And that's all left up to, interpretation.
What's our lawyer think?
These attorneys that in this webinar or whatever it was, get pretty explicit about, like, they're both from Wahpeton or three of them from Wahpeton. And they discuss different things that the council in Wahpeton did that turned out to be illegal by way of the home rule charter.
But that home rule, does that have, because I remember a little bit about it just from, we never did it when I was here, we were council auditor, mayor council auditor. Because to me, on this stuff, you would think that that's not part of a home rule charter. That the home rule charter goes over the city and what, again, the sales tax, that it's not a mayor council, how it's presented. But then we talked about the,
Ethics.
yeah,
Leadership.
leadership code. And that's a guideline is what you told us. So if that's a guideline,
Well, if there's an
even if
ordinance-
we put,
Yeah.
a penalty or however you wanna say that into that, is that even gonna work?
Here's what I would need clarification on. Is there an ordinance adopting the leadership code as law?
No.
If there is no ordinance adopting the leadership code as law, then it is not law. If there is, and there's no punishment process for violating the leadership code, then what's the point of it?
There is nothing says in the back, it's not a legal binding document. I never signed it. Ain't gonna sign it.
If you can't punish violations of it, then why would anybody care about complying with it? Because nothing's gonna happen to them anyway.
It's kind of like the Bible, there's all really great ideas in there, but there's no.
We're kind of talking in circles because what I hear everybody saying is, there's a problem we need to address. But in order to address it, we have to solve the problem at the same time. And we're just talking about what the problem is over and over instead of suggesting processes and solutions. Now we've had one, which is create a committee. Does anybody have any alternatives to that, or does the council just not like that idea?
I don't like anything.
So what's the alternative?
I don't know, I think the alternative is sometimes we have to actually act like adults. I mean, if we have an issue with an employee, we speak our mind, we let them know what our issue is, and we let it go.
What do you mean?
And then we have to let it go that if Brent, you did whatever you did, I'm just gonna pick on you because we always do. And no, but if you have that issue with AJ, and we continually have that issue with AJ meeting after meeting after meeting, that accomplishes nothing as well.
So by doing nothing, you're saying all of us sitting here, by doing nothing, if there's.
You can't just grade the guy.
How do you figure that? How do you think that we fired the last person that Chad was Public Works? He wrecked.
I get that.
He was threatening the ladies in the office. So I mean, I was right on
But-
everything I said.
But
I got
do
a
you do
list
it,
to
do you
go
do
through.
it every meeting?
I've done it the last one.
No, that's what I'm saying though.
That's
But-
the only meeting I've ever done.
But when you do it meeting after meeting after meeting, and that's what we tend to do up here, is we bring everything back that we did 6 months ago, a year ago, whatever the case might be.
I brought it up one time. I've
I
never
get
said
that,
that.
I
in 5
get it,
days.
I understand
Well, then
that.
I don't know where this goes, where.
Hey, guys, we gotta get back on track here.
Can I circle back around to something real quick?
Yes, please.
We're talking about disciplinary actions, meetings, et cetera, and to be honest, it all circles around you, Mr. Mayor. You're running the meeting. So when things tend to get out of hand, it falls upon you to gain control of the meeting. It falls upon you to ask people to stop shouting, ask people to please be respectful to each other, and then you have to follow through on that. I'm all for giving people chances, but when someone disavows those chances that you've given them and continues to disrespect other council members and citizens, you have to step up and do what you have to do, whether it's removing them from the meeting. I don't know. That is your call, but you have to make some kind of call. You are the captain of this ship, sir.
You can't sit there and laugh.
How do you know he's laughing? How do you know he's laughing about that? Can't guess what someone's laughing or smiling. He kept it
Well, I
round.
felt was childish behavior on parts of the council. But
And we've all
I'm
been there.
not using a specific instance, sir, it's a general statement.
well, I appreciate that.
I do know one thing, ever since December, that the mayor's been insulted by a handful of people on a constant daily basis in every meeting. And I've watched it. By council members, by the public, by social media, terribly on social media. Chuck House is probably one of the nicest men you'd ever meet in your life. Doesn't have a mean bone in his body. He got on this to be the mayor. He thought to try to help. That's it. Not to cause trouble, not to be on my side, your side, whoever's side. That isn't it how he works.
I wasn't criticizing the mayor, sir. I was referring to how the meetings need to be run.
What is the pecking order from what I understand, the only authority I have is running the meeting. And I can fire the, who can I fire?
The attorney and the
Yeah, with permission of the council.
You don't need permission for a lawyer, right?
Not to fire them, but to hire them.
You can fire both, and this is to have a good reason why. You have to get permission to hire a new person.
So as far as, if a public works person wasn't doing his job, I have no authority to do anything to him. When you're on your job and your boss comes around and says, Mike, this is wrong, there's a consequence there.
In my situation, my boss doesn't like something, he goes to my foreman, and he tells my foreman about it, and my foreman disciplines me. And Elaine would very not Elaine. Diane would be the foreman of all city employees. So if we have complaints, they should go to Elaine, and Elaine should handle it. I keep saying Elaine, I apologize. Diane is running the city on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely.
Complaints should go to Diane. Diane should handle them as she sees fit. As she sees fit, going by, oh my goodness, what's the big book you guys run by?
What the century code?
No, for employee policy, there we go. Employee policy. That's how employee complaints should be handled. If we're getting complaints from citizens about somebody not doing something at work, we should be informing Diane about it. And Diane should handle it accordingly, like it is in her job description. She's the city administrator, should be handling it from top to bottom. She is more than willing to ask for advice from you, Mr. Mayor, because you do sit equally on, as far as I understand, you do sit equally on the chain of command. So you two should be working on a daily basis on what's going on in the city.
I agree.
And you should be taking your input. But she is the administrator. She administrates disciplinary action. She administers job duties. She administers everything and everybody that works for the city, as far as I understand. Does anybody disagree?
Well, isn't the mayor above the administrator? Just far as in the.
So Mike, what you don't have is that Twyla brought us the chain of command,
Yes.
and it has city council at first with, that includes the mayor, and it's as a whole. And then under there is personnel commissioner, under there is city administrator, and then under them is the employees that we have.
That's a chain of command for, where, like, issues would go to. That's that chain of command, if I remember correctly. That's not the, that's not the power structure of the city.
The mayor's
That's
above,
the actual chain of command we have in place, if I remember correctly.
the mayor's above the administrator. Mayor's right underneath the city council, that's how we put it in there.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Oh, organizational chart, well,
Yes.
that, the mayor and the administrator are equal to.
Well, no, technically, in the Surrey city ordinance, I mean, the city council members, us six, are here to enact and enforce ordinances. And we are here to, take resident complaints and address them. The mayor now, on the other hand, has powers and duties that, exceed that by quite a bit. He has a full page of powers and duties. We have one little sentence. So my question is, so you said,
Mike.
Mike, hold on.
so just 1 second, so my question is, we want the mayor to be able to run everything in this town. I mean, we want him to be able to run the meetings properly. How can he do that when he's constantly being cut off at the knees? Like, Chuck, did you know about these complaints prior to this meeting being called?
No.
Okay, so these complaint letters did not go to the mayor. They went to 2, 3, I have no idea how many council members before they even went to the mayor. And this is only one instance of this. There's, Chuck doesn't have a set of keys for the office. He just started signing checks recently. I mean, those are things, he needs to be.
That is not true. That's not true. He's been signing checks since he started, since they got him on the bank.
Ask the mayor.
When we switched over banks since then, but that's been about 3 months.
He's been signing checks.
So for 10 months, he's not been able to do the mayor's job because who is elected? Why does he not have a set of keys for the building? He's the mayor.
You guys, we gotta stay on task here because.
No, I'm just trying to address, Mike's comment about Chuck running the meeting, when he's constantly being, I mean, I'm gonna say it again, cut off at the knees, it's almost impossible, when he doesn't always have all the information. So if you wanna work on this chain of command, I'm more than happy to do that. As far as the complaint letters, I agree with the city attorney, that when they are submitted to the office, they go to the mayor, and the mayor can, I don't know if we need to revise the personnel policy manual, add a section in there regarding council members, whatever you wanna do. The leadership code is not an ordinance. It was never adopted. It says right on the back that it is a guideline. So,
So Amy, what do you think about putting something? Because how do you put that in an ordinance? A disciplinary policy against council members, is it?
In century code,
But you have to follow the North Dakota Century Code pretty much.
you can have, a council person can be removed from a meeting for disciplinary action, but not twice for the same action.
The mayor has the authority to remove anyone from the meeting at any point in time.
I guess I've not seen that anywhere in the century code.
You are running the meeting, sir.
Yes.
This is your meeting. You have the authority to remove anyone at any time.
I guess I'd have to see that in writing before I could agree to it, but it does sound good. Anyway, let's get down to our discussion of the complaints.
I just had a quick question. Is there a planning and zoning meeting in town?
They've canceled.
Oh, okay, I'm just curious.
interested in doing that, or what's your thought on that?
Well, it's gotta be as a whole. Are we interested in making, disciplinary action in an ordinance? Or are we interested in this guideline thing that we have and putting a disciplinary action in there and wanting to take that on? Like making it a formal document instead of a guideline.
Because as of right now, we have no ordinance at all for any disciplinary action for the council.
Right.
Never happened. But remove the legal.
Well, and that's why I don't want anyone to be removed. But we've got to be able to come here and do our city business the way that we need to without, again, to be adults and to be able to handle ourselves. The difference is that we're people. And at times, I've seen everybody get upset when they're sitting here, including myself. So if I'm upset, what's gonna stop me from doing stuff that shouldn't be done when we're sitting up here?
What shouldn't be done, for an example?
Well, again, two people can have a conversation, but when it gets to a heated point, that's when it needs to stop.
But when somebody makes a motion to dismiss an employee, that doesn't mean it should be dismissed. There's a reason. It wasn't out of anger, it was not anything such facts.
Honestly, and I will just say this, right, you and I have been friends for a while, just like, I know everybody that's sitting up here for different reasons.
Yeah.
Okay? For me, there's a chain of command. I've been an employee and I've been a manager. And there's a chain of command. We as council members need to follow that chain of command for sure. And so I don't know what happened with the previous person that had got fired, but I'm assuming that someone, whether it was a public works commissioner, brought it forth as a recommendation because of what happened.
If I remember, I think Jason Bogdan brought it forward.
So,
What do you mean chain of command? You don't go any higher than council.
no, I'm saying if you have a complaint against AJ,
Yep.
why bring it straight to council? Why not even talk to AJ first?
It's been discussed with Steve multiple times.
But I wasn't gonna fire him.
Why then? It doesn't matter. I was.
Correct. So that's what she's talking chain of command. So yeah, I would assume you would have went to me,
I did.
yeah, and nothing happened. So then you would have went to Chuck or Diane, whoever wanted to lay it out.
Well, when it comes right down to it, and I think there's a lot of other cities that are the same way. Between me and Kyle and Mike, there's a lot of we don't like each other, plain and simple. But I didn't get out here to fight. I got on the council plain and simple because I want to do what's right. And I was elected. I didn't get on here to fight, but I'm not gonna sit here and be a sheep. If I see things that are wrong, our equipment's getting wrecked, different issues like that, I'm calling it out, plain and simple. It's no different than the mayor not having to be able to actually do his job since day one. Can't even get in the building.
And that's not a bad thing.
You mean it's not a bad
By
thing?
you
He's
calling,
above
no,
it.
I say it by you calling it out. It's not a bad thing.
It's good as long as I'm sitting here.
But what we need to figure out is how to call it out without calling it out, I guess. I mean,
But the thing
that's
is, I've already brought it to you.
correct.
And we've discussed multiple things that don't get fixed. You complained yourself. So what are we supposed to do? Just, it's okay. You're a boss. You have employees under you. Would you let it slide just because it's a city government deal and you don't want someone to be mad at you? Of course not. I call up my own kids, my best friend. They ain't doing their stuff the way they're supposed to do it right. Or frickin' move on.
Anyone else have any relevant comments?
You don't take any comments from the citizens at all? I mean, there's a couple of here that actually might have a little insight.
I don't think
No.
we should.
No, we
Just start working.
The whole purpose again, circling back around, the whole purpose is we need to have something in place. What is it? Do you guys like the idea of an ordinance? Do you guys like the idea of putting the discipline into this document, leadership code, and adopting that?
My opinion, you should write an ordinance that goes somewhat off the North Dakota Century Code, so you're following the rules of what the state does.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yes,
An ordinance,
I don't have
apparently an ordinance needs to be written. That's what's done. There is a lot of other cities that have council members that don't always. That isn't always a bad thing.
Nope, we should have disagreed.
No, you don't want to sit here like sheep. Let's freaking get our, let's do the best for our town, and that's what I'm here.
There again, the Century Code has provision for disciplining council people. That they can be removed from a meeting. And if that, I don't remember what it is, if they miss 2 meetings in a row, they can be removed.
You can vote on a majority, I believe.
Yeah,
And
And the whole point of the leadership code, which everybody says is not a legal document. I'll agree it's not a legal document, but it is a civil agreement, as far as I'm concerned. It's a 100-page civilly in a meeting and with respect to everyone else attending the meeting, citizen, council member, mayor, employee alike. And the reason, as far as I'm concerned, that we have it is to have something to fall back on. Hey, you disrespected a citizen as per the leadership code, and for that, you're getting a warning. You do it again, you're going to be removed from the meeting. That's how I view the leadership code. It's a guideline on how to act civilly. And when people tout the fact that it's not a legal document, I don't have to because I don't want to, because you can't make me, it doesn't promote a civil exchange between council members. That is where I see the value of the leadership code, and touting out the fact over and over and over again that it's not a legal document. Okay, it's not a legal document, but it's an agreement that they all sign on how to conduct themselves during a meeting.
okay, what I like to say to that, Mike, too, is I agree with that. There's a lot of it though in here, if you go through it, we're supposed to have respect for each other, which I think for the most part we do. There's a lot of different things that we're just not gonna agree on. It's no different than when you talk to how we act at meetings and everything else. It should be the same as when your wife is always on social media bashing all the certain ones of us too. And that's, you're the president of the council.
Sorry.
let's not get too far into that.
I just
Well,
want to say one thing
respectful.
about Brent's motion that he made at the last meeting. I didn't know anything about it, and I don't need to know about it at this point, because I didn't know there was an issue. But the month before, you couldn't say enough nice things about him, and all the work that he had done, and giving him ideas and hints and things to try and do or whatever. And then we come to that last meeting, and then boom, you wanted fired. So I was kind of
Here's
missed by that. I don't understand how you go from 1 month to, hey, you're doing a great job, keep it up, and then the next month, boom, I'm like, yeah.
I'm gonna explain it right now. Okay, so since AJ started, I've always liked him as far as a person. I've always tried helping him because I know more about public works, snow removal and different things. I would say, hey, this was last November, about this time of year. Your guys' job, you gotta make sure you clean sidewalks, going to the school. Fire department, he wouldn't do it. Him and Diane both sat at the meetings and said, nope, we don't have to do it. We looked it up in our ordinance. But that was the agreement we had when we got the, what do you call it? Sidewalks are paid for with grant. This thing is, I've tried helping him over and over. And you know what? It's just that he doesn't want to do anything. There's been them two little projects off the end of 4th and 5th Street been brought up for 2 full summers. That is a 20-minute fix on each road with 1 load of material, half on each road on the end of it, to just fill in these washouts. It was simple. 2 years it's taken him. I'm done. Sick of it. He does not want to do anything, especially if I help him. I'm not gonna. Our streets are dirtier than hell. He hasn't even put the broom on a freaking bobcat. You know, when a car comes by, you can't do all the streets. He can't. We're gonna have to pay to have it done next year. Do you know that I've had 2 mechanics from town that have come up to AJ and said after the meetings that they would help him on that street sweeper for free, just to help, because they're citizens. Because it's a complex machine. There's brakes, there's different things. And AJ's not very mechanically inclined, and either am I. But he's had help. This has been a buildup for 2 years.
Can I ask how long you've been employed here?
May will be 2 years, I believe.
I
You
think
know,
you're forgetting Brent for all the things that he does.
I know he does good things.
Complimented by people all the time, and so I
Yes.
say, the city has never looked better.
Look at it. I've never seen our streets so disgusting and
All I
dirty in my
know
life.
is what the publicness says he takes, and he has gotten so many things done, just because he doesn't get the one thing done for your friend, doesn't make it a crime.
One thing done for my friend. Me and Chuck back here, friends, no, we're known acquaintances. I wouldn't know.
The day after that meeting, I asked Chuck when he came to the office, I said, how long's that road been that way? He said, oh, Diane, years and years and years. And I said, all of a sudden, September 2020, it has to be fixed.
2 summers it's been sitting on our agenda over and over. Nobody does anything. Do you know that to fix one road, to do that is literally one person's could do this.
No.
Simple.
No.
No way.
That's enough.
Well, I know it's fixed now, and it looks really nice.
It
That's all
does.
I'm gonna say.
It does look nice.
So are you looking for an ordinance where, like, a council member can say, Mr. Mayor, I think we need to remove Twyla from the meeting for whatever she's doing? And then we vote on it at the meeting or what?
Well, I don't know where, I don't have the ordinance in front
I
of
mean,
me.
is that what you're looking for? I don't know what else to do.
How
I mean-
are we gonna handle these complaints? That's what I'm asking,
Can I
because,
make a suggestion, Lynn?
Yes.
Can this be the first thing we do on the ordinance committee? It seems to be really important for everyone. Maybe it's the first thing we should have.
Here's my problem, and I think we have the same problem at school, because this day, what are you gonna do? You can't hit them, you can't beat them, you can send them home, they wanna go home. What do you do? I mean, before, the mayor wrote several people letters and put them in their files. That was how, and they weren't necessarily complaints. They were just things that he took upon himself for inappropriate action at meetings or whatever the case may be. So other people got letters in their files for that. And I agree, there needs to be some sort of consequence. If it's a 3 strikes, you're out kind of a thing or whatever, I don't know what the answer is. But when you talk about discipline, what are you gonna do? What's the goal? I mean, yeah, we don't want people to file complaints. You know, nobody wants to have a complaint.
Twyla, the ones that filed the complaint are you and the person I said that I wanted fired in Diane.
No,
Otherwise, we wouldn't be discussing it. I don't want to fire
In my
anybody.
opinion, Brent, my complaint was absolutely nothing having to do with the fact that you wanted to fire AJ. It was the way you went about it.
How am I supposed to go about explaining it? How would you do it differently if you're giving me one? I've already went to
I
the
think-
commissioner, right?
But you talked to Steve? Did you talk to Chuck? Yes or no? Did you
Yeah,
talk
I
to
guess we
AJ?
talked about different things over.
Did you talk to
time, not-
AJ?
Talk to AJ?
So you didn't talk to
Hi.
AJ, you talked to Steve, you didn't talk to Chuck, and you didn't talk to Diane.
Well, I just said, I talked to Steve, I talked to AJ, even about that. Steve even told me in September that he got him to get to go to Silver Springs and mow, and he said, I'm not telling you anymore, I'm sick of it.
Well, in my opinion, I
So
don't think
I'm
firing
with her.
somebody is always the answer.
I will not call Diane unless my phone's on report. It will never happen.
Well, we're getting way on.
There's a genuine lack of respect, I think, amongst a lot of us.
You gotta have respect for someone that doesn't do either.
I agree with you.
I put up with a lot of crap and accusations from, I won't even say, and, I don't respect.
I believe it says in the ordinances that when someone has a problem, that, the mayor or the administrator, counsels them or talks to them about the problem. But there's no, I'd say no disciplinary thing involved unless you go to the meeting and have them removed from the meeting.
And
Go ahead.
And to be honest, that's honestly what everybody at that table is afraid of. I honestly guess everybody's scared of me that what are we gonna do with council? Honestly, I don't think anything needs to be done to a council member. I think we need to have a conversation. The problem needs to get resolved. To me, what's happening now is somebody has a problem. They air their grievances, and another person airs their grievances. And the animosity stays in the air. There's no clearing of the air. There's no come together. Everybody, for lack of a better term, I don't even have a term for it. Nobody wants to even come together on anything. And that's our biggest problem.
In my opinion, the deal with AJ, what my suggestion or solution would have been,
Trying to stay away from specifics.
let's make a list of things that need to be done. Let's prioritize, hold on, let's prioritize it. Let's discuss it with AJ, and then Diane can take care of it.
I'm not dealing with Diane plaintiffs. I'll go to the commissioners.
That's part of the problem.
That's why I went to the commission.
We can go to the mayor and then, and I'll go with Diane. Okay.
I did not want to fire AJ, but he won't do his job. He does a lot of
That's
good.
not true, Fred.
I think he does a
Can
lot
you back
of
up
good.
front again? Yeah, we know what they're doing.
That's what we're here for, so.
I agree with Diane's suggestion, is let's get the ordinance committee together, this is the first thing we do. Because in all honesty, what good does it do for us, the 5 of us that are here, and like, to sit here and go through these complaints and read them, even if we read them out loud? It doesn't do any good, because we don't have anything to do with them. It's just words on paper at this point.
So do you think that the North Dakota Century Code has it in there, that a council member cannot be removed from a council unless basically for stealing, bribery, different issues that are very serious?
Well,
And then that goes to the governor, has to come in and have an investigation, and he decides. Now, the lower, smaller issue, that you can be removed from one meeting by a majority vote, and you cannot do it again. The council cannot remove you again for the same
Only one time.
one
You misbehaved at one time.
time.
We
that
can
what you're
remove twice, but not for the same thing twice.
Okay, when
For
you
the
say-
same thing twice.
I'm just gonna say I'm just gonna say swearing. So if you swear one time at a meeting, you can be asked to leave by the mayor,
By a vote of the council.
by a vote of the council,
The
but
mayor-
you have to initiate it.
Yes.
If you have a council member,
Okay, so then let's just say it happens the second time by somebody, by me. Then at the same thing, if you can't be convicted of the same thing twice.
Correct.
If he does it once and he's off one time, if you do it once, you're off, but you can't be kicked off this meeting and next meeting for swearing at this meeting.
So
Just
what's the
double check.
purpose? I mean, I'm not saying, you know, that that's the problem, but I'm just saying, when you say for a reason, is a reason inappropriate behavior or, you know, being rude to somebody or saying something rude against someone in the audience, whatever the case may be. In my opinion, if this is the case, it would have to be very specific as to why you were removed.
It's by vote of the council, so if everybody on the council feels that that was offensive, then they can remove you.
Mayor has a right if somebody, if someone in the audience or a council member is up here being completely whatever, disruptive, whatever, and ask him to leave the meeting. Take him out of the meeting or just.
Only the mayor though.
Otherwise, me and you kick each other out of every meeting.
But it's for things that happen after.
It's okay to disagree. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm going to be in trouble on social media for laughing.
So Mike is right when we talk about we need to start having conversations, then is what we need to do. But how do you have those conversations? So again, for example, the complaint against the mayor is supposed to come in and it's supposed to go to the mayor. So there's the loophole there. We gotta get that figured out. But now the mayor looks at it, let's say it's a complaint against me. That goes to the mayor. So then the mayor is supposed to come to me and have, because even if we have a protocol of what needs to happen with these, that's what we're looking for. So then the mayor is gonna go and talk to me about the complaint. And then if I still feel strongly about the way that I was, how does that get resolved? Are we able to resolve any of these things, or are they just gonna sit out there, big clouds over our head? And like I said in my Kumbaya speech, we don't have to like each other, but we have to get along so we can get the city business done. That's the bottom line of us sitting here at this table.
With your scenario, if the complaint was about you and it came to me, and then I visited with you, and you still have a strong opinion, as we all do, on something, then I think we can bring it to the council. Or to, we don't have a committee, but we can bring it to the council. But only after it's kind of rolled out, so to speak, to get more of a motion out of it.
All that's gonna happen, if you get a grief or get something, say it's against whoever on here, and you're gonna have the other side that's either way are gonna say, oh, you didn't do enough, mayor, you didn't do that, you didn't do this. All it's gonna happen.
Well, it goes back to the same thing, what are you gonna do? I mean,
Well,
have a
just like
conversation
this
with somebody.
complaint, I could go through every one of these complaints and I could stop, raise my hand and let you explain everything. And then, I didn't do anything wrong. Still to this day, I don't believe there's anything wrong. I followed the chain of command. I waited till, it wasn't on the agenda, but I did on the additional minutes or additional, whatever at the end of the agenda. That's my opinion. I took it to where I could, through the mayor, through a commissioner. I prefer not to. I'd rather not fight anybody ever. I want them just to do their job.
When,
I want the mayor to be able to do his job, be able to get the bill.
when,
No, sure. Yeah, but that's the problem.
when we get these complaints, I guess one that I feel we can eliminate right away is we get complaints from people that don't live here.
Why we would.
A complaint from Heisler person about the city, and she's not a resident. She lives in Jefferson Trailer Park, I think.
My personal opinion is, I understand what she was trying to say. But we are sitting up here serving the citizens of Surrey. And so that,
She's not one, so.
right,
Some people like to just stir the pot, especially when they run the Maya rounds and rage page.
so that, to me, it's gotta be a resident of the city of Surrey in order for
I
that
have to agree with that.
to hold true. I mean,
I agree.
Resident or someone who's,
Employee.
employee, or,
So then I would ask this question, if the person, let's just say Miranda, and she did file a complaint. If she can't file a complaint, then she get on the agenda, just address the council. Same reason, right?
What
I
end?
mean, I'm sorry,
I guess to what end?
well, that's my point.
I guess, I think whoever's doing the agenda should have a discretionary thing, the mayor should be looking through that agenda before it ever goes out.
Andrew?
And that gets discussed between Diane and the mayor, it should be on the agenda.
Yeah, when I brought up the thing about the ethics committee, I did that as a private citizen. I didn't do it as city attorney, and I don't live in Surrey.
That was your advice.
Well, no, that was me as a private citizen, bringing that before the council, so. You have to be a resident that within that.
Well, that and then the people that own Karma over here. Do they live in Silver Spring?
but if,
I don't remember. Steve with Devil's Fire, he doesn't live here.
but he has a business here.
Yeah, he did, that's
So,
what I'm
like,
going.
yeah. They've gotta have something,
Well, that's the interest.
That's very, that's an interesting view.
I know you agree with that, I can agree with that as well.
I would imagine Pastor Kim would probably, be also eligible for something like that.
I mean, either to speak on the agenda or to,
Yeah.
whatever the issue may be.
Do we have a solution or going round and round on all of this?
do we know of, in Velva, is there anything that has anything like that? An ordinance that discusses anything with council at all?
No, I mean, as a matter of fact, we can talk about disciplinary action all we want to tonight, because we're blue in the face. The only disciplinary action comes from the people, the people who elected us. So, I mean, we can remove Brent for spouting off at one meeting, yep, with the majority vote, you can do that. After that, I mean, it goes back to the hand of the people. We have no right, no legal right to do any more. There's a reason why it's not in the North Dakota Century Code. Because it's not up to us, it's up to them.
So that follow saying, superintendent, if someone is appointed by the mayor, whether they're appointed or elected, is it the same
It's a,
rule or thumb?
I would say that would be a finer line, however,
I would think, no, I would think if he appoints them and you sit up here for 6 months and then,
Then you get elected.
yeah, you appoint him, you're there, you're done. You're as much right as anybody else.
I agree with them,
So we're back to the beginning.
We gained nothing.
Well, we needed to have the conversation.
I might have it.
I will tell you that. We needed to have the conversation to figure out what we can do with that.
Can I shoot forward a scenario of what I'd like to see?
Go ahead.
Say, Mr. Mayor, you get a complaint about me that I mishandled, I was inappropriate in a meeting, I disrespected, we'll use Diana's, disrespected Diana in the middle of the meeting. There's a citizen that is upset about it, or even Diana is upset about it. You get two complaint forms, one from the resident, one from Diana, about how I behaved in the meeting. and they're handed to you. Now, upon getting those complaint forms, you come to me, and we have a discussion about it. You try to express to me how I may have screwed up, how you feel I screwed up, how the resident feels I screwed up, and how Diane feels I screwed up. You come loaded to the gills with every ordinance, rule, code of conduct, leadership code, everything that you have at your disposal to explain to me on how I may have messed up. And you express to me that I need to make amends, whether it's just an apology, a formal apology, or whatever. And if I continue to disagree, that's fine, but that's where I would like it to be stated that you made every effort to try and impress upon me the views of the people that have the complaint forms, to do due diligence to those people who wrote complaints, that you decide to work it out. That's what I would like to see.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
And it involves everybody being civil to each other, which I think we all can do.
Yes.
I have a question to Mike, for Mike. So how would you go about if you had an employee as a council member and you went through basically a chain of command, talk to the commissioner, talk to the mayor, had your complaints, how would you go about it yourself?
I would have went to Diane and formally make a complaint with her and put it in this file that we finally get this work done and see what Diane thinks about it with that. I would have gone to Diane because she's the one running day-to-day operations of the city. She is ultimately AJ's first boss. Ultimately, we're his boss when it comes down to it, but Diane is AJ's first boss.
But didn't you say before that you thought the mayor should be taking care of that stuff instead of Diane, or not?
No, I did not. I said they should be working together to solve problems, for sure.
So
But
there's,
ultimately, Diane is the one that makes the decisions on who to hire and fire. Well, she brings it, let me walk that back. The council would have to fire him as a whole, as far as I understand.
Yeah.
But that recommendation would come from Diane, like what you said, Bobby brought the termination from before to us as a council. Because he felt that it got to the point where he needs to be let go.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
yes,
Yes.
but,
Mr. Schultz had the comments.
Okay, so it sounds to me like we have three different kinds of complaints. We've got complaints against employees. We have complaints against elected officials and complaints that don't have anything to do with either. The ones that don't have anything to do with either, it sounds like maybe Diane can take care of those on her own and just report to the council, hey, we got a complaint about the tree. And this is the letter that I wrote to the person about the tree. Here you go. Okay. The ones about city employees, what I hear Councilor Thiessen saying is that she can take that complaint, make a recommendation about what should happen, and then present it to the council for the council to take action. It sounds like everybody is generally in agreement with that. When you get a complaint about an elected official, well, it has to start somewhere. I mean, the complaint has to go to someone. If it went to the city administrator as a filter point, not for any recommendation or for anything else, just to say all complaints filed have to go through the city administrator. If you get a complaint about an elected official, it goes straight to the council to be addressed in a council meeting. And the council can discuss amongst itself what should happen in that situation. That sounds like a general consensus for how complaints should be handled. Am I wrong about that?
I would like the first step to be, in my opinion, the first step should be with the mayor trying to counsel that council member or what.
Yeah,
I
and
think we should go to the mayor first as our to spearhead.
And I understand exactly why you would want that. However, my concern is if there is a conversation like that about a potential complaint, then there should be a record created of that interaction. Because, and my goal in saying it should go directly from the administrator to the council is to create as few interactions as possible, because there's a lot of personalities on this council. But 25 years from now, y'all may all be dead. Okay? And the structure that you all create is going to be institutionalized. So think about the next person that sits in your chair, or the next third or fourth person down the line. We don't know if they're gonna get along, or if they trust each other, or if they spend their free time coming up with ways to get each other in trouble. My concern isn't about trusting each other or behaving civilly toward each other. It's about creating this structural framework so that generations down the line, they're gonna follow the same process. And the easiest way to do that is to go, all the complaints go to one person, and then depending on subject area, different actions have to happen. And the fewer records that are created, the less likely the city is to get sued for not maintaining the records they're supposed to.
The only thing that I'm concerned about is, like you said, we have lots of different personalities, and that we don't get anywhere in a council meeting. That's what, we just end up right where we are right now, talking in circles for an hour and 15 minutes.
Well, I don't think we talked in circles. We just came up with a 3-part structural framework for what to do based on the topic of the complaint.
We're not actually discussing it, but we're not being pessimistic.
I created a chart based on what everybody said, so.
So here would be one of the, maybe, I don't know if you'd say problems, but if you have an employee that's actually, if there's any equipment damage, I'm just curious, has there been anything in your file? There been anything written down? Any complaints at all? That you put in this file, or?
What kind of damage are we talking about?
Well, I don't know, they just, why is he over $500 on the loader? That's a $100,000 loader. The motor goes out on that loader, you'll have to raise the tax. We don't have $100,000. Why is he not servicing that loader? He's the one that
He
said,
has serviced it.
the last meeting, he said he's
This is
over
our
$500,000.
I think,
But to go, I guess,
I think we have a pretty good outline on good ideas.
This is what everybody's been talking about. I just turned it into a flow chart.
Let's,
Put that into a nice form, and then, I would like to look at it. I would like to think about it and look at it, so I don't know if you can get it to Diane and have her get it out to us.
you'll all get an email with that on it.
But this is what you all have been talking about. It sounds pretty coherent to me.
Yeah.
It does, but what do you do as far as like,
There still's no discipline, right?
yeah,
He's gonna have,
Right.
Well,
But I
but
think,
that's 2 different conversations. One is what is the process? The second is what is the punishment, the enforcement? So,
Okay.
but it's 2 separate conversations you see with 2 different topics. This is the process. But the enforcement of the punishment can come later.
the problem that I have is the enforcement of the problem is because somebody on here doesn't like what a council member says. You think you just can remove them because you want to. It's more out of hatred than it is, it shouldn't be done. I can have my opinion, file it, and whoever can have their opinions up here.
Right, but I think Jenny's right when she says that really it's not my responsibility or my duty to have you removed, he's removed or anybody else.
No.
It's these people here, they elected us.
well, I think it's our responsibility to remove him or her at the meeting that we're doing. To bring up a complaint against Brent for what he did last meeting, to try to discipline him at the next meeting. Well, how do you do that?
The meeting was like ready to be.
I mean, if we as a council didn't make that disciplinary action to remove him, then we failed. And I don't know why we,
But in
How
my
do you do it?
opinion, and just my opinion, it should have been done by the mayor, should have just cut off right there. It shouldn't have even gone any further.
But why? That was my opinion. You might have an opinion. I went through the change.
You can have an opinion, but you made a motion.
Well, how the heck do you think the last guy got fired? Who made a motion? How do you think you fired my daughter as the clerk? They made a motion. I sat right here and watched it.
Say, up.
I mean, it's been done multiple times.
It's hard it's hard for everybody to get along. Now, I've talked to Brent, almost every week for the last 4 or 5 months or whatever, twice a month, whatever. They're not always pleasant conversations for me or for him. I mean, it's definitely a growing experience every time. But I mean, you still have to have some sort of small little respect.
I agree.
He has some good ideas. The way they are presented sometimes aren't good. But
Like what?
we
Name
have,
one.
what's that?
Name one.
She's got the floor.
It's just the way you come across with it. And that's the way you are, and I get that.
It's straightforward. It's not
Exactly.
like it's asked.
I get it. And sometimes we have to have that.
Yeah.
We do,
I agree.
but not all the time.
Should we,
I am nice. I was pleasant to you when I talked to you.
Yes, you
Well,
are.
we talk, when I call you, it's about different issues, what we're talking about. And then I want your opinion or whatever, and then of course I tell you mine.
I get the floor now. Mike, do we need a motion and a vote to, have Mr. Schultz design his little draft thing? And, get it to Diane, so we can all get a copy of it this weekend?
Is that a legal document?
It's just my notes.
I'm sorry, I couldn't remember. Is this a legal, is this
Why are you
legal
talking?
services?
You're not supposed to be talking.
It's an important taxpayer question. Are you paying
You're
them?
not supposed to be talking. What's the name?
So I would ask a question for you.
That, if he was to present that so we can look at it. Do you need to have a vote to have him presented? Or is we just have it presented?
I will ask the question, is it going to be a legal binding document?
We gotta vote on it first.
It's gonna be a proposed ordinance.
It's proposed, yeah, because I want to see what it is before I make a motion that I'm
So
going
it's
to
a
agree upon.
proposed ordinance.
When I write it.
So then my next question is, may I ask who's on the ordinance committee? Because I've heard so many different names, I have no idea.
I can write proposed ordinances and present them to the council.
Oh, I'm not
I
questioning
can
that.
answer that question.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I am on the committee, Tara is on the committee, and Jamie Soper is on the committee.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you.
Oh, and Diane, so
And Diane.
she has to be here so we can get in the building and look at the ordinances and that stuff.
I'll make a motion to have our attorney draft a proposed ordinance to help us through this situation. That's what I call it.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Ms. Dancer, any further discussion?
So you're basically asking to.
I'm
I'm gonna
asking
write this
for,
up and then you're going to give it to us at the next council meeting, we're gonna vote on it, right? No,
discuss it,
Discuss it.
just to see what his idea is, I guess.
Just to see it on paper.
See what it looks like.
And then at that time, would it go to the ordinance committee for approval?
we have to.
I mean,
if-
for review?
No,
No?
Ordinance
Oh,
committee
yeah,
is just
Jenny
find the
just
stuff.
said it would take 2 meetings to approve it, and you have first reading.
correct.
Mr. Schultz, can you please go over just the third thing again? I got the grass ordinance and I got the employee complaints go to Diane, the third.
The elected official part?
Yeah.
Okay, so every complaint, no matter what it's on, goes through the city administrator. If it's about an elected official, no recommendation is made. It's given directly to the council for discussion at the next meeting.
So it goes to the administrator and then goes where? If it's about elected officials?
If it's about an elected official, it goes directly to the council.
My opinion would be for that to go to the mayor and for it to follow that write-up thing that was happening before, and then it can happen again. I mean, really, we have no disciplinary action that does not violate our organization. So I just think that would be,
The North Dakota Century Code, if I'm right, that overrules. Period, right?
all over the
Well, they're giving you back to the home rule charter. We have a motion on the floor and do we have a second?
Twilight.
Twilight, seconded. Who made the motion?
Steve,
Steve? How do you
Yep.
vote? Yes. Twyla?
yeah,
Ms. Johns?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
And Ms. Christensen?
Yes.
Motion
Mike.
passed.
Mike,
on phone.
Did I miss? Oh, Mike, sorry about that, no offense. How do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Yes, all right. Have we talked enough? Can we go home? We have a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion.
Motion by Brett to adjourn. Second by Elaine.